Alright, hello friends. Gonna continue this streak of doing a bunch of IM reviews, and today we're gonna do the CVJ TXS. Now, full disclosure, this was sent to me by CVJ for my honest opinion. That's it. So, I will give them my honest opinion. They are seeing this video when you see this video. Now, this is an IM with switches. Okay, so kind of like the TRN, but we're gonna talk about these switches a little bit because the way that they function on this IM is pretty different from how they function on the MT1 Max. So anyway, so front of the box we see the IMs here, tunable in-ear dynamic earphone. And then on the back, we have, I guess, standard plug, standard, I don't know, white, 115 dB, which is pretty high sensitivity, 22 ohms, and yeah, that's pretty much it. This is interesting. Cell phone mode, game mode, hi-fi mode. What is that? I don't know. Shit, your guess is as good as mine. So, anyway, we'll try to figure this out and decipher that. But yeah, ever since the, what is it, the CVJ, shoot, where is it? I don't see it up there. I forget, whatever their last IM was, the middle one. It was pretty decent. Where the hell is it? Anyway, it's 1DD, 2BA. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people received it pretty well. Not the best thing out there, but very well done for the money, and yeah, not a bad IM at all. Nothing that really stood out that was bad in any way. So, but yeah. Anyway, so this is their budget model. It's a single DD, and the dynamic driver has a special formulation, like a special coating. So we'll take a look at that because that is pretty interesting. So here are the IMs themselves. We see they are clear with this like metal design. I do not like the appearance of these. I'm not a big fan. I just think they look weird. But to each their own. I'm sure there's some people that think these look kind of cool. But I am personally not a fan of the design. They are comfortable. There's no issue with comfort or anything like that. I don't care for the appearance. It's just kind of weird looking, but anyway, not bad. There are our two switches on top, and you can see the wires are kind of like heat shrunk. That's just to keep the wires from touching each other, because they are actually soldered onto the switch. And yeah, there's our driver in there. It's like I think they call it like black gold or something like that. But yeah, it's like a metallic kind of sheen to it. So we'll take a look at that. Got the little vent in the middle there. Then we have like a brass or like a metal, some sort of coated nozzle just to keep it from corroding. And then we have a little stamped metal plate on top. We will remove this to see if there's any dampening on this earphone. And yeah, just one thing to interject real quick. So I think the biggest downfall of a lot of IMs and a lot of IM manufacturers when it comes to single DD earphones is the fact that they do not use dampening. There's no dampeners on the nozzles, which I find very fascinating. It's just something that, in my opinion, is a necessity. It can only benefit the sound. And there is such a thing as IMs that are overly dampened, but in that case, they just sound a little loose, or like a little muffled, or like restrained. I don't know how to explain it. But because I play around with earphones a lot, like I have my nozzles and my drivers and stuff here. I play around with dampeners, so I hear when a driver is under dampened or over dampened, and it's kind of like a fine balance between tuning and dampening. So the dampening changes the tuning, but it also changes the timbre and some of the technicalities of the driver. So, and that can go in either way. You can have a driver that has no dampening and sounds really loose and unrefined, has like little resonances and stuff, and like slight ringing. And then you can overly dampen an IM and have it be kind of subdued or muffled or blunted, like the notes can be blunted. So anyway, but yeah, one thing I find with a lot of IM manufacturers is they don't use any dampening whatsoever, and there's like peaks and stuff, and all you have to do is just add a single dampener, a little cloth dampener. I mean, they're wicked cheap. I can pick up a sheet of 20 of them. Now this is 80, but one of these sheets has 20 on them, and I can pick up a sheet of 20 for, I think it's like 86 cents. And that's my price. That's not the factory price. So 86 cents plus shipping for a sheet of 20. And like that's nothing. That's peanuts. So anyway, but we will take a look and dissect these and see if there's any kind of dampening inside, and then we will also take a look at the tuning. But first, let's open up the box and look at the cable, and we'll take a look at the tips real quick. Okay, so first thing to note, inside the box we have our little SIM ejector tool. Okay, so this is just to change the switches. Alright. Kind of a nifty thing to have, just because these are, you can't, even if you have long fingernails, they're recessed, so you really can't get your fingernails in there. You need some sort of like little screwdriver or some sort of little tool to change them. So it's good that it comes with that. And then we have our cable here. Now let's see if the quality is it's okay. It's alright. Definitely not a fan of these ear hooks. They need to shorten the ear hooks. And really, guys, listen, okay? CVJ, TRN, not really KZ. I guess, well, no, yeah, KZ really doesn't do it. Who's the other one? Tangzu. Like, you guys, listen to me. Whatever factory, whatever company is making these cables here, tell them to stop using this plastic on these ear hooks. They have, there's vinyl, okay? There's rubber latex. There's all kinds of other stuff that they could use that is just as cheap, if not maybe a tiny bit more expensive, and the difference in quality is drastic. See, with these, the problem is this plastic is so stiff that you get like this bending and you get this harsh angle. Like, I'm really tugging on these, and so you're gonna, the conductors are gonna start breaking here and here. Also, they stick out way too far. When you put this around your ear stops at like right here, you know. I mean, I don't know. It's just, anyway, the hooks are too long. They're too stiff. Just change the material. Just put a different material on there, and we're good. I mean, that's easy. But yeah, otherwise, not a bad cable. It's a woven cable. L-shaped plug. We have gold-plated 3.5 millimeter. It's nice to see a little strap. So strap looks good. Keeps the cable tidy. Another thing too is the split is just too long, guys. Just shorten it up a little bit. You really need like maybe half the amount, like that. The human head is not this big. I mean, it's way out of frame, but it's literally, if I hold it from end to end, it's about 3 feet in length from one ear to the other. Now maybe that's so people can share the earphones, but if you're gonna do that, just add a little cinch, you know, just tack on like 50 cents to the price, but put a little cinch on there. I'm telling you guys, the absolute best cable I've ever seen. And you know what? Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab it because I need to show you guys. Okay, So this is the cable from the Truth Ear Ola. All right, it's a $18 IM, just a little bit more expensive than these. I think these are like $10. Okay, but this is the best cable, like one of the best, even for like a $50 or $100 IM. This is one of the best cables I've ever used. It lays flat, it's super soft and supple. It's great. It's got a L-shaped plug, which is fine, but the length is really good, and it's got a chin cinch that is functional. It holds its place. It's, it's not hard to slide, but it actually holds its spot. The ear hooks are this is what I'm talking about, okay? So you have this like super hard plastic, all right? This like ridiculously hard plastic. And then these have this like vinyl or like a softer form of plastic. I don't know, maybe this is like TVPE or I don't know, whatever the plastic bags are made out of, but it's a different type of plastic, and it's softer. It just feels softer. It feels smoother. You can't even tell these are on your ears. The ear hooks are curved instead of this fucked up shape here. Like that. What is that? Okay. So anyway, guys, just talk to your cable manufacturers. Put like 50 cents in there and upgrade your cables. Even if you gotta charge $1.50, $2 extra to put in something like this is a huge market improvement, and I guarantee you more people are gonna buy your IM because they like your cable. This is a killer cable that came with the Truth Ear Ola. So anyway, this is just whatever. This is like the absolute bare minimum to get you by. And I see the other IM that they came out with. It was like $60. It had a cable like this. It's like, guys, come on, what are you doing? Just put a better cable in there. Anyway, so we got the IMs, we got the little switch, and then we have 2 sets of tips here. I believe there was a third set on the IMs themselves. Anyway, the tips are decent. They're like KBO7 type tips. Okay. So, got a couple like that. And a couple like this. So yeah, not bad. But yeah, just simple setup. So, anyway, guys, sorry for the long ramble, but let's get into the listening session. Alright, guys, and for today's listening session, I have both switches in the on position. I'm using my favorite tips. Again, like I said, these are one of my favorite tips. This is the TRN T tips. I will leave a link in the description for the TRN T tips. And just for the hell of it, I'm going to use my Truth Ear cable, just because why not? I have it sitting here. Again, my source is going to be the Hi-Diz S3 Pro. And today's track that we are listening to is Medusa by Kaylee Morg. So this will be our test track for today. And let's give it a spin. Alright guys, back from the listening session. So I took a second to compare it to the MT1, and I honestly have to say that I think I prefer the MT1 a little bit better. Although the quality of the bass, so the overall technicalities of the MT1 driver is just a little bit better, just a little bit. These drivers sound a little bit more bloated, a little, I don't know, I guess you could call it fuller, but it's a little more thick sounding, a little more kind of bloated sounding. There's a little bit more roll off noticeable in here. The tuning, as far as the switch configuration that I had in my last video, which is, well, what do I have in here? up. So yeah, it's down, up, down. Okay, so just the second switch on is actually pretty similar to this with both switches on. There is some funny business going on in the treble area here, and I think this is pretty common or commonly inherent to IMs of this budget. The treble performance is just not great. It's it's uh, it's got some ringing, some sibilance to it. Um, it's it's like kind of scratchy and just I don't know. It's but the bass quality on these is very nice. So if you're a bass head, I would recommend these, and I would recommend them over the MT1. So if you're a fan of bass and you're a bass head on a budget, these are dope. These are good. But yeah, it's not very far off from the MT1 Pro. So, but yeah, the technicality, the performance of the MT1 driver is just a little bit better. The treble quality is a little bit better. As far as the soundstage goes, I don't know. I didn't really do a comparison. I think that these kind of lack depth and they're a little bit congested. These are congested too, but there's a little bit more depth, it seems like. But yeah, so overall, the tuning on these is slanted towards bass heavy. So bass heavy. The mids, I think, are also just a tiny bit more subdued than the MT1, but these also sound thicker. They sound fuller, but they also sound more bloated and just kind of slower. The drivers don't sound as tactile or as speedy as this lightweight diaphragm that is inside the MT1 Pro. So, because this is a coated driver and this is a just like a PET, like so it's very thin driver. So this has a little bit more speed, a little bit more agility. Technical performance is a little bit better on the MT1 Pro, but overall the bass quality is a little bit better. There's a little more punch, a little more slam in the TXS, and there is also I don't know. I'd say the dynamics are probably a little bit better on the TXS, but then again, that could just be a result of them sounding thicker or more bloated. But yeah, overall they're decent. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so I was just looking up the price. So the price is pretty much the same between the two. Honestly, you'd probably be getting a little more value out of the MT1 Pro. And I'll explain a little bit about that in just a second. But if you're a bass head, I would definitely recommend the TXS. If you're more into bass, I think these do a better job. But if you're into overall clarity and a little bit better technical performance, the MT1 Pro would be a better option. I personally don't care for either one of these, but that's my personal opinion. If you're on a budget and you can't save up the extra $10 or whatever for instance, like for a KZ or whatever, then yeah, you could go with either one of these. But in my opinion, these guys still have a little bit of a ways to go to catch up to KZ. I think KZ is really dominating the game when it comes to their tuning. They're just crushing everybody. So, but anyway, but these are not bad. They're not bad options. You know, for $11, they're decent. But for overall performance, I kind of skew slightly towards the TRN. But for bass, like I said, bass and maybe stage, because I think you do get a little more depth out of the TXS. But yeah, so CVJ TXS is not bad. But let's get into tuning real quick. I'll show you guys a graph. Alright guys, so here's the problem with the TXS. These are all the different switch configurations. Okay, so the first one up here is both switches down, followed by first switch on, followed by second switch on, followed by both switches on. And then you'll see there's these peaks are kind of shifted around. I just did this real quick. This is just the result of having the coupler in at different depths whenever I change the switches and plug it back in. But yeah, you'll see that the tuning switches really have little to no effect on the tuning whatsoever. You're talking of a difference between, let's see, 1 dB. So, yeah, let's check over here. Yeah, it's like maybe 1.5 dB. Okay, that's just pitiful. The switches on this don't make any difference. They do nothing. So yeah, I mean they do a little, like a little bit, but in my opinion, it's bogus. It's a gimmick. So let's we'll get rid of those. So this, well, actually, let me just I'll take these off real quick, and then let me open up the TRN, and I'll show you guys the difference. All right, so this is the MT1 in comparison. All right, and you'll see that there is quite the difference. I mean, for example, in the upper end here, it's 104, 96. So what, that's like 8 dBs worth of difference. That's a pretty big difference. And then down here, that's a big difference. This is only a couple dBs, but I mean that's not bad. There is something happening here, okay? That is a difference. So we will remove all these, and then we go back to the TXS, and it's like, it's pitiful. Anyway. Hopefully in the next IM, their tunable IM, they'll fix it, but this is no good. I would not call this a tunable IM. That's why I made the comparison between these and the TRN without really like changing the switches, because the switches do nothing on this IM. They're pretty much useless. So anyway, let's talk about final thoughts, and then we'll get back to the teardown. All right, so final thoughts. TXS, is it a good value? If you like bass, I would say it's okay, but it's really hard to justify the existence of the TXS when you have the MT1 Max here. I mean, there's just no competition. These switches are essentially just a waste of materials. I don't know how they thought that was acceptable, but yeah, in my opinion, that's not acceptable. The switches just don't make enough of a difference to justify having them on the IM. That amount of difference that you see is essentially the same amount of margin or difference you would have between units, like unit variance. So there's no need for this to exist. In my opinion, these are not a tunable IM. They are just a single whatever IM. Now, is the difference in tuning really functional or necessary on the MT1 Max? Yes and no. I think that these could have done with a little more treble, and then they could use the switches to kind of back down the treble in steps. But instead, these are overly dark and recessed, and there's only like 1 or 2 modes where you actually get enough treble for them to sound like balanced. And there's only one real tuning, in my opinion, that is like the best. All the other ones are just kind of like mediocre. But still, I'm sure there are some people out there who have like treble sensitivities who may choose a different tuning, you know. So everybody has their preferences. So I'm not going to dog on them. I think that as far as the price difference goes, I think the TRN is the better value. But yeah, but that's just my opinion. So let's open these up and let's check out these neat drivers. Oh, real quick, before we do that, let's check to see if there is anything under these stamped plates. I think I do see a mesh. Yes, I do. Good job. All right. So yes, so they do have a mesh. It may not be much of a mesh, but they do have a mesh. I was going to say that the overall tuning looks better on the TXS in my opinion. It just looks better. Does it sound better? I mean, not when you compare it to the one mode here, the down, up, down on the MT1 Max. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think the tuning is better on the TXS. It's just more even, more balanced. But yeah, so anyway, so I think they did a good job. The mesh is a good addition. I think that TRN should have added mesh, but then again, maybe they just didn't get enough treble out of this driver. I don't know. They do have mesh there, but I don't know. Maybe they should have added a thicker mesh or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's something for later. But yeah, I don't think that mesh is really doing much on the TRN. All right. And you'll notice. So it looks like they got some silver wire there. So high quality wire. That looks good. It looks decent. These are not bad IMs, but they are not tunable. The tunable portion, in my opinion, is a lie. The cake is a lie. So, anyway, but yeah. Not bad. Looks like all the guts are on the actual driver itself. Very interesting. Alright, let me get this driver out of here, and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright, guys. So there's the driver. It's a cool looking driver. And yeah, no wonder these aren't tunable. Man, these guys, they tried to be as cheap as possible, and they're using the existing circuitry on the driver here. So this is essentially a driver that's made for like BAs and stuff. But instead, they like wired onto the capacitor and the resistor. Like they wired through them to change the sound. That's just, I don't know, that's just stupid in my opinion. But they used high quality wire. Like, come on, guys. Like, they used this nice wire, shrink wrap the switch, but then like instead of making a PCB and doing it the right way, they just tacked onto the driver. Like, come on, guys. It's Chabadoa. Fucking totally Chabadoa. For anybody that wonders what Chabadoa means, it's like half-assed in Chinese. It's like good enough. So anyway, I will take a look at that circuit a little bit more. That's why I'm leaving it in one piece, because I'm going to analyze that. But anyway, that's the tuning circuit. And there are switches and the connector. I mean, that's all nice quality. That's not bad. Like, that's really nice. Come on, guys. Come on, CVJ. You're doing so good. But anyway, so the I'm dead set now on realizing that this is not a tunable IM. They figured they could get away with it and make it quote unquote tunable by cheaping out, but you can't cheap out like that, guys. Come on. Come on. That's just bullshit. That's a gimmick. The driver's nice though. The driver looks nice too. Like, you guys went so far. Come on. CVJ, I like you guys. I wanna like you guys. You're doing so well. Take it all the way. Come on, take it all the way. Alright, so anyway, so there is the magnet. Here is the driver. It's some sort of like mylar coating or something. It's some sort of reflective coating. It's very exotic looking. I don't think it has very good performance, but you gotta admit, that's a fucking cool looking driver. I mean, that thing looks sick. Like, look at that. Check that out. That thing looks dope. Here, let me zoom in on that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that thing looks fucking sick. That looks so cool. It's like a metallized coating. Let's see how strong it is. If it's strong, that means that it's too thick. Yeah, that's pretty thick. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty thick. So no wonder they sound a little bit slow. But that bass performance is really good. I'm not gonna lie. That's a good bass, and that has something to do with this this coating here. But yeah, that's cool, man. That's such a cool looking driver. God, you guys, come on. Killed it with that driver. Maybe the driver was so expensive that they wanted to hit a certain price target and they just couldn't justify. Because a lot of times what happens in products like this is, they have to hit a certain price because they want to keep it competitive with, the competition, especially in a market like this. So they probably spent so much on this driver because I can guarantee you this is not a cheap driver. It's definitely not as cheap as this driver. This is way more expensive than this. Okay, this is cheaper than this. This is more expensive than this. Guaranteed, 100%. I guarantee it. I promise you, this driver is more expensive than this driver. Okay, but then again, this PCB is more expensive than this. Okay, this bank of switches is more expensive than this bank, but there's less labor involved. Okay, so somebody had to wire all this up. That's cost that goes into the product. All right, it's absorbed back into the product. In this case of this earphone here, there's a PCB, so all they have to do is solder 4 wires, 2 coming from the connector to the board and 2 going from the board to the speaker. Okay, in this case, they have 6 wires. Okay, they got 2 coming from the connector to the board, and then 2 going from the board back to the board, and then they have these heat shrunk terminals or whatever that they had to do. So they had to heat shrink that. It's harder to solder to legs like this than it is to solder onto pads. So that takes a little bit more time. Not by much, but just a little bit. And then they use this wire, and this quality of wire is much more expensive than this enamel coated. This stuff is dime a dozen, super cheap, but this insulated silver wire is more expensive. By how much I couldn't tell you, but I know it's definitely more expensive than the enamel coated wire. So, but anyway, yeah. So they went all the way, and then they just had to take it that extra mile. If they would have implemented a PCB like TRN did, then this would have totally been a tunable IM. But maybe the driver is just too dark because of this coating, and maybe they just wanted to try to keep it as bright as possible, so they didn't implement a tuning circuit. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, maybe the R&D would have been too much. I have no idea, but anyway, it is a cool IM. There's no doubt about that. The driver is very cool, so I'm not going to knock CVJ too hard on it. Plus, the sound quality is pretty decent. Like I said, the bass quality is really good on these. The tuning is good on these. I think the tuning is probably a little bit better than the tuning on the TRN. but the performance of the TRN driver is just a little bit better than the one in the CVJ. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.